promised you guys a last lecture today, and as you know, Wednesday we're going to party and enjoy my last official day on campus. So this is in the tradition of academia, a teacher's last shot getting something across to you. Wow, thinking about what to say to you guys, I thought, I don't think it's going to be about Freud or audience or attention getters. If I get a shot at giving a real lecture to you guys, and you know how few times I actually lecture you, what is it that I would tell you? What would I want you to walk out away from me learning? Because as I've taught you in speech, it's all about the listener. It really is all about you. But in those introductions, we have to make some kind of an emotional connection. Remember, we tell stories? Well, I thought about that, and I thought, that's what you need to know is a little bit more of a connection with me before I can start lecturing you on important things in life. So, to begin, I had an odd birth. My mother was a cuckoo bird. And if you know anything about cuckoos, cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of other birds so that the other birds will raise their young and they can go off and do what they need to do. And my mother was a good cuckoo, all right? She had had a pregnancy that she really wasn't going to be able to deal with. So she left me in the charge of some really amazing people who had this strange little cuckoo baby. They knew nothing about me. They had no history, really, other than to know that my grandmother was a concert pianist. They knew that much. And they really were unsure as to how to offer me the things I might need. I wasn't genetically linked to either one of them. So they had no emotional connection to what I might need in life. They just used their intellect. So these really amazing people, my parents, offered me a smorgasbord of things to try in life, to find out what I was talented at. And because they knew my grandmother had played the piano, they sat me down at the age of 3 in front of a piano with a teacher, and I took years of piano playing, and I was pretty good at it. I loved it. When I progressed on into high school, come on in, I discovered that I could sing. And I did that, and I loved to dance, so I was this strange, weird art freak, really kind of a geeky kid. A lot of times on my report card, I used to get, does not play well with others. And I did not take this as an insult, okay? I kind of wore this as a badge of courage, because my parents were amazing, but I didn't have any siblings, and I wasn't raised around children to speak of, so I really wasn't very social. And I didn't have good social skills, so I was kind of always off in my corner playing the piano or doing something geeky. And didn't mix well with my peers. It didn't bother me particularly. And in high school, I had this trajectory. I was going to be a star. I was going to go to college. I was going to study. I was going to go to Broadway and or the opera and become an amazing singer, dancer, talented person. And I went to college. I actually had a full scholarship in opera. And I went to college, and I had never, ever, ever, with all my dreams and aspirations, never, ever, ever considered being a teacher. Boring, drab. Why would I want to go over material with people that I had already learned? What a waste of my time. Why teach you what I know? I already took the time to learn it. I just didn't see me as a teacher at all. And so I went to college, and I met a wonderful teacher, Dr. Peter Popovich. He was like the god of our department. He was so talented. He was known all over the United States of America. And so, in fact, he was so well known that at one point he got the poet Yevtushenko, a Russian poet, to come to our college to give a lecture. This was in 1969, a long time ago. And he was just amazing. Dr. Peter Popovich. And I was his student. I sat at his feet for class after class after class. I took everything he offered at the University of South Florida. And I met a graduate student in his apartment, dated and married him. And Dr. Popovich was very close to us as a couple, and he became my husband's best man at our wedding. Sadly, only about a year after we were married, Dr. Popovich died suddenly from a stroke. He left behind a young boy, and an amazing wife who was Lady Popovich. She was a PhD in our English department. And I went to my first real adult funeral. It was raining and drizzling, as funerals and gravesides usually are, unlike up north, it was hot and steamy rain in Florida, in Tampa. And at the graveside, I was really devastated. I'd never lost somebody that close to me, and someone so early, and it seemed such a tragedy. And I looked at his tombstone. This isn't it, but it's similar in its simplicity. And Lady Popovich had put Peter Popovich, the date he was born and the date he died, and one word: teacher. Wow, I was pissed off. How could she do that? This renowned, amazing, talented man, teacher. Not Dr. Peter Popovich, just Peter Popovich. Not professor of a university, just teacher. She obviously didn't love him. She obviously didn't know him. I mean, I knew him. I knew what he would want to be called. And that stuck with me for a long time. That stuck with me. Teacher. Yeah. What a bland, simple way to send somebody out of this world. Well, as life, you're going to find out, has a way of doing, we end up with lots of paths, lots of trajectories we had no idea we were going to take. I didn't graduate as a star. I graduated as a communications major. And life pointed me in lots of different directions. I wasn't singing and dancing and playing piano, although I used those things periodically. I ended up as a rec therapist in nursing homes for a number of years, playing bingo and playing the piano. And then I ended up directing nonprofit agencies. And I began working with underprivileged kids and adults. And then I moved into the health services through cancer, a number of other issues. And my last job as director of a nonprofit agency was a 17-county-wide AIDS agency in North Carolina. And this was at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And wow, it was challenging. Because at that time, no one survived. Everyone died. If you got a diagnosis of HIV positivity, you were dead. And it's just a matter of time. And it was going to be a horrible death. There wasn't any AZT that was legal. And we had really nothing we could do except maybe help people die a little. And I had now many years into thanatology, which is the fancy word for death and dying. I thought I kind of knew how to do this with people. Unfortunately, as the epidemic went on, not only did we lose many, many grown-ups, but children started to become infected more and more. And the population in my agency changed to lots and lots of children who were dying. And I really reached a point that I couldn't take it. I just burned out. So I looked around and thought about what I could do to leave a legacy. And by the way, I was 45 at this time and looking in the mirror and going, I'm almost 50, this is frightening. And I wanted to find something where I left things for people who were going to live beyond me, not die long before me. And I thought about college teaching, and I was single, and I was supporting myself, and I thought, well, I could teach college and make a decent living, and most of those people will probably outlive me, so it's not a bad idea. So I went back to school at 45 to get a higher degree. I kind of backed into teaching. It was really an accident, because while I was putting myself through my higher degrees, expecting to be some kind of really fancy university professor, I started teaching at a local community college to support myself. And I found my place. I found my home. I loved my students. I had kids from 15 to 80. I had kids who were just starting life, and I had kids that were very old, finding a way to make meaning at the end of their life. I had people who were telling me stories of how college was going to change the trajectories they were on, which oftentimes were not good. And I was so stunned at this possibility of teaching with this group of people, of being there with them as they made these phenomenal journeys through their life. So I became an accidental teacher, and my boat and my trajectory changed tremendously at that point. So that's a lot of my stories about teaching and me and how I got here in front of you. And so for about the past 20 years, I've been teaching communications and psychologies to classrooms full of students. And what you may not know is that every term, when I come in and I look out at my sea of faces, I sit back there frequently and cry a little because I see the vast, beautiful, white, clean pages you've got in front of you. And that just stuns me at the possibilities, the places you're going to go. So I stick to teaching because it's a really cool thing. And I start thinking, okay, that's my introduction. We've connected emotionally a little bit. So now I'm going to give you my preview statement. I'm going to tell you where we're going in this for you. What's in it for you to listen to me today? Well, I've lived a long time. Okay, I'm getting kind of old. And there are about 3 things that I came up with that I would love to share with you as to how I got from there to there, or from there to here. And the first one is, first and foremost, take the helm. Steer your own ship. The second would be, once you've taken that helm, steer it with kindness, steer it with compassion. And my third point for you today is never, ever jump ship. Because see, when you were born, there's a myth that before you were born, you were given a name, you were given a title, you were given a purpose. And you weren't told that purpose. In fact, this little spot between your lips here, this little cleft you have, when we all sit here and think, that's where the angel sealed your lips to know what your real name was, so that you spend your life looking for it. So when you got born here, you have to spend your life looking for who you are, finding out who that true purpose is. Now, when you got born, you got put in a ship, your own little boat. And it had a design, it had a basic structure. But you're going to put your mark on that ship for the rest of your life. You're going to change it, you're going to redesign it, sometimes you're going to sink it, but never jump that ship, okay? Pull it off the bottom of the ocean, reinflate it, and get back in. And we're going to talk about why through some stories. So, charting your own path. Well, you're a generation. In fact, we have lots of generations in here. Generation baby boomer, baby boomers. We don't have any people that are of the greatest generation in here today. I've had them. We've got Generation X, Generation Y, iGen, which is Generation Z, and one thing that I think most people talk about with students today in the classrooms that we see are 2 deficits. They actually hurl these as insults to you. You're entitled, and you have no critical thinking skills. Have you ever heard that? You didn't do that, okay? You're not to blame. Now, the fact that that's there, yes, we see that. We see a lot of entitlement, meaning people show up, and because they're sitting at a desk, they think they are going to get an A. And we see a lot of students who, on the other hand, really don't have any ability to gauge when they should do something first or how to prioritize. They don't have those critical thinking skills. And those are 2 big deals in life, okay? Knowing that you're not the only person on the planet, okay? And knowing how to gauge danger and risk is really vital for your success. So you're going to have to find those skills, because even though you're not to blame, we are, because in our intense love for you, we tried to level the playing field so no one would feel bad if they lost something. We gave all of you an award, and we thought that was a good thing. It wasn't, because you guys know clearly that one person gets the job, all right? There is competition. You're going to have to compete in life. And the other thing about entitlement is we basically told you that if you showed up for that competition, you were going to get an award. Well, that's not true either, not about real life. Sometimes we show up for things and we don't get an award. So what do you do when you have things that seem out of your control? Well, you have to find a way to work around it. You have to add those skills to your toolbox. You listen in classes to where teachers are trying to help you with those critical thinking skills. I'm going to share a story with you about a student I had many years ago, about the time I had you, Vito. She was a young woman, absolutely drop-dead, gorgeous, model quality, beautiful. She was a dual enroll student. I knew that about her. And she would come to class a little bit late every day. And while you know I'm not a stickler about tardiness, I was concerned that maybe her school bus wasn't picking her up on time, or maybe the school bus was having problems getting her to the school on time. And we sometimes intervene in those situations. So one day when I was coming down the hall, about the same time she was coming in, I stopped her and I said, you know, is there something I can do to help? I noticed that you're late quite a bit. Is your school bus giving you problems? She didn't look at me, all right? She looked at the floor and looked away, and she told me, well, Dr. Moore, my mom and I live in our car, and we can't go to the same restroom every morning to clean up. We have to go to public restrooms to clean. And she said, so we drive around because if we go to the same one, the police will catch us as vagrants. So sometimes we have to go quite a distance and I don't get back in time. And sometimes my mom runs out of gas. And she said, but you know what? I'm going to get her up earlier to make sure I can get here on time. And she scuttled into class, leaving me in the hall to cry. I had no idea. I had no idea what struggles this child was going through just to make the class. And by the way, did I mention she was straight A? She was gorgeous. She was dual enrolled. She was a straight A student. And she didn't say to me, it's my mom's fault. It's my dad's fault for leaving us. It's your fault. It's society's fault. It's the car's fault. No, the one thing she could control, she said, I'm going to get my mom up earlier. Now, I have not had the privilege of knowing where she went. She didn't stay in touch. But I will guarantee you she is somewhere in her life taking the helm and saying, it's my ship, I sail it. Point number one. Point two, kind strangers, all right? Steering with kindness. Why? Why should I be kind? Well, I'm going to tell you that when my life trajectory changed a lot, and I didn't become that star, and I added a new dimension to my life called children, my life took a whole different trajectory when I became a single mom. I was poor. I was sewing the elastic back on my underwear rather than buying new underwear. And it was a tough road to hoe, folks. It was tough being a single mom. I didn't get the things that I thought I wanted, but I had 2 children that I had to get to the other shore. So I was steering this ship of mine, and I was floundering a lot of the time. And there were some pretty dark days. There were days that I really didn't know how I was going to do anything, how I was going to pay the daycare bill the next day. There were days that I didn't know where we were going to pay either the electric bill or the water bill. And I always opted for electricity, but my daughter kind of argued with that one day when she had shampoo in her hair. It was tough, and I got depressed at times, really depressed. And then I got cancer. And life was tough and hard and dark and gloomy. And I wanted to quit so bad, but I had these 2 people. And I remember I was at a little country church in the middle of North Carolina in the mountains. And this woman said very simply to me, a little humble lady that I would not, honest to people, and I'm so ashamed of this, I would not have given her the time of day 2 years before. I would have said, she's not my kind of person, you know, she's not educated. She's just a little humble country person. And she said to me as I was leaving church, is there anything I can do to help? Nobody had asked me that. And here it came from the most unexpected, unassuming place. I was stunned. I can't tell you what that did to me. It gave me the courage to keep on. Wow. Be that kind stranger, because I'm telling you, if you haven't needed a stranger in the past, you may in the future. There's a wonderful play where Blanche Dubois, a fading Southern belle, says, in a moment of clarity and honesty, I have often depended upon the kindness of strangers. And I have. And you will. So put some deposits in that, guys, as you go through life so that you can do some withdrawals, because you will need those withdrawals from time to time. Kind strangers, they've been all around me. And my third point, never, ever, ever give up. You're going to want to at times. You may not have yet, or you may have. Sometimes your waters are going to be great, you're going to have successes, you're going to have all your family supporting you, and sometimes that's not going to be the truth. Sometimes you're going to fall on your face. Sometimes you're going to make the wrong choices. Sometimes people are going to desert you for no reason. It wasn't your fault. Why? I've got a quarter and I got nobody to call. Hopefully kind strangers will be there. But you can't jump that ship because it's your ship. It's the only ship you're going to get. Now, as I said, there were waters in my time that actually I capsized from time to time. I don't know how my kids and I got to the other shore sometimes. I know I managed to get them because they're still alive and they're prospering pretty well. And we all got our leaky boat to the other side. A lot of times it was because somebody threw us a tow line. Sometimes it was because they took us into their ship and towed our boat behind them. But we got there. If I had given up, I would never be here. I would never have found this sea of students. I would have never found this man. This is my late-in-life husband, George. I married him 10 years ago this year when I came here to teach. We're getting ready to jump into another exciting part of my life. But if I had quit when I wasn't a star, I wouldn't have gotten here to the best part of my life. Because even though I backed into teaching accidentally, I got to tell you, it's been the most meaningful thing I've ever done next to raising my 2 kids. It has been amazing. What a journey. Now, I'll tell you a little story about the time when I gave up on that stardom. I didn't jump ship. I changed my design. I had been auditioning. I was married to my husband, who was a theater director, and he was very much in favor of me continuing on with my career in the theater. And I'd been auditioning lots and lots of places, and I wasn't getting any parts, and there was a group forming with the Disney Corporation called the Kids of the Kingdom. And I had had 3 auditions with them, kept getting callbacks, which is a good thing. I was on my 3rd callback, and I was really excited. I was finally going to get something. I was going to get my break in theater. And we were in the penthouse of the Contemporary Hotel auditioning, and I got cut. No. And I'm dejectedly packing my shoes, my dance clothes in my bag, and I'm getting ready to leave. And one of the judges said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And he pulled me over and he said, "I just want to tell you that we didn't hire you, not because you're not talented, because you are." He said, "But you stick out. You don't fit with a group very well." There's that playing well with others thing that has always been my curse. And he said, "You're really a solo act." Well, I know he meant that kindly and to encourage me, but boy, it didn't work. I went downstairs and I put my fist into the side of the Contemporary Hotel, which also didn't help. And I got so angry, I called up a job that had been out there for me, a horrible job, and I said, "Yeah, I'll take it for the summer," which was playing an Indian at the State Theater in St. Augustine. It was a rotten, horrible, disgusting job, but I took it because it was theater. So off I go to St. Augustine, telling my husband goodbye, and he's like, "It's okay, we all start somewhere." And I went up to take this job. Well, every night before a show, I would have to rub this stuff called Arizona mud all over any exposed part of myself to turn myself red, because our theater director thought that Indians were all red-skinned. And we did the myth of Ponce de Leon, which is truly a myth. It did not happen. And we had this stupid play that we did every night. I lived in a house on the beach, which sounds exotic, right? No. It was with 10 other stinky theater majors. And we were crammed in with, little tiny single beds here and there. Yeah, it was on the beach, big deal. This was not romantic. This was not what I dreamed about. Well, a hurricane kind of came close to St. Augustine, and they canceled our show that night. And it was actually very lovely because the hurricane was pretty far out, but the beach was gorgeous and it was dusk, and so I went out to walk the beach. And I'm looking at the shells and I'm walking the beach, and I don't have to put on Arizona mud tonight. And I started crying because I hated where I was. I hated what I was doing. I hated being a failure. I hated not getting parts. I hated being told I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. And I wanted to go home. And I called my husband and I went home. I quit the stupid play and I went home. Now, I would love to tell you I never looked back and I never had regrets, and that's not quite true. But I did change my boat. I expanded it. I added 2 kids. I added family instead of theater, and my life changed a lot. And then later, when the kids were back on shore safely somewhere else to start their journey, I added a whole line of seats for a bunch of students. And I kept sailing my ship. And I didn't jump. If I had jumped ship when I wasn't a star and said, "Oh, I give up." If I had jumped ship when I had cancer, if I had jumped ship when I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life because all the children around me were dying, I would never have met you, the greatest gift of my life. If I had stopped then, I would have never been here. So, sail those ships, guys. This is where I'm going tomorrow. This is my little company I think I've shared with some of you. I Tried More rides again. We're going to be taking other people out to learn about Florida, because I am a Floridophile. I love everything about this crazy, insane state. We're going to take people who want to feel like a kid again, who might not be able to ride a bike, but they can sure ride a trike. And we started our little company. So if tomorrow belongs to me, it can belong to you too. You know, I'm 67 years old, and I'm starting a business and a new life. Don't ever tell me you have to give up. Take your helm, steer with kindness, never ever jump ship. And I'm going to leave you with one word from our final phrase from a movie I love, The Marigold Hotel, which says, you know what? Everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. And these, as we all say, must be a call to action at the end of our motivational speaking. So these are the 40 greatest movie motivational moments in history in 2 minutes.
We're gonna fight! No! We will run! We will live! Shame on you! Be the greatest night of our lives. You're gonna let it be the worst. And I guarantee you, we won't go by in your life. You won't regret walking out, letting them get the best of it. Well, I'm not going home. You've got too far! And I'm gonna sit right here and fight for this lost cause. Okay, they come! The courage of man fails, but it is not this day. The life must be troubled. Yeah. This far, no farther.
I'm not saying it's gonna be easy.
You're gonna work harder than you've ever worked before.
But that's fine. We'll just get comfortable with it.
A personal business team that shows real determination.
Failure is not an option. That's how winning is done. Believe me when I say we can break this army here. And we're just one for the getting. Well, I say to you, what every warrior has known since the beginning of time. You've got to get mad!
I mean plumb mad dog me.
If you would be free men, then you will fight to fulfill that promise! Let us cut out their living guts 1 inch at a time.
And they will know what we can do!
Let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions! Like a big bear, man. This is your time. Seize the day. Never surrender. Victory or death. Who's with me?
Clap! Clap! No mercy, no! Clap! All right, let's fly!
And gentlemen of England, now then, shall know my name is the Lord. But I tell others that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our independence.
So, go conquer the world, guys. Make me proud. Any final questions before we partay on Wednesday? Bring food, plan for fun, let's have a good time. And your final exam is online, it's open right now, go do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of myself and on behalf of every life that my wife has touched, I'm giving her these flowers.
Take care, guys. I made it without crying, and that's what he does say. You're welcome, guys. Take care.